Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. So on that note, my thesis for a long time has been that users don't want increasing complexity. They don't want more choice. They want sort of trustworthy, reliable information. They do want rich results in some cases. They do want the functionality that Google's offering in some cases, restaurant reservations, what have you. But I think that the as Google has tried to adapt to changing user tastes and interests, they've mucked up the SERP. I mean, it's long been my position that it's like, sort of Las Vegas now. It's too cluttered. It's just too much information. And one of the complaints that younger users have made is that it's inefficient, that Google's SERP is really terribly inefficient to go through and to try and find a result that's interesting or that's trustworthy or what have you. And so one of the things that we're seeing in response to that is Google's whole, what we can call the hidden gems strategy, which is them surfacing more and more social content, partly to compete with TikTok and partly to answer these issues about these complaints about SERP quality, spam, etc. So they're surfacing more human-generated results in forums and blogs and other sort of more authentic sources. And Joy Hawkins of Sterling Sky recently documented this in the Garage Door segment. And she was saying that, I forget whether it was 3 months or 6 months ago, there were certain, expected sites ranking. And now she was seeing a bunch of forums and niche sites showing up in these positions. And the other rankings were dropping further down the page. And in a certain kind of ironic way, I mean, there was a point at which I argued Google, somebody should bring back the equivalent of the Yahoo directory, sort of human curated or partly human curated, results. We don't need a million results. We just need 3 good ones or 5 good ones or whatever. And nobody's going to do that. We have yet to see what Yahoo's going to do in search. But what Google's doing is a kind of version of that, because the Yahoo directory was a human compiled repository of links, the sort of highest quality links, presumably. And Google is sort of outsourcing that to these social sites and forums and blogs. And it's doing a version of that. It's sort of trying to overcome the flaws and weaknesses of this sort of monster that it's created by advancing sort of human generated content. So that's my rant for today, I think. The question,
and potentially a little bit of a preemptive defense against all this AI generated content as well, right?
Exactly.
You're going to have bots in these forums, but theoretically, as we talked about either last week or a couple of weeks ago, you're going to have a layer of human moderation that Google doesn't have to do to sort of filter out those bots. So,
well, that's right. I mean, that's what you can see. The forums is that this is a sort of another way for them to get at content moderation, without as many quality raters or whatever. So it solves a bunch of problems for them hypothetically. The question is, are those results going to be good, and is spam going to start seeping into, Quora like spam going to seep into all of those forums once people realize that this is another way this is a barnacle SEO kind of strategy.
It'll be curious to me if we see this on hyper local terms. For example, garage door repair is a very hyper local search, even though it's not geolocalized, or whether it's on more informational, how do you repair a garage door, and whether it results in less organic localization that we started seeing in 2012 with Venice, I guess, and whether it will affect hyper localized queries that include geo modifiers like garage door repair only in New York. Will it, how far will it reach? Is it more on the informational side, the side with more ambiguity, the side that's more questions, or is it trend across the whole gamut of local queries?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, in a way, it's sort of Back to the Future or some equivalent, in the sense that way back when, before Google was really localized, people would use these sort of forums and discussion groups. In my area, it was the Berkeley Parents Network, to get referrals and recommendations from trustworthy sources. So you could ask people, this is what Nextdoor should be, but isn't.
Exactly.
and so we're kind of coming full circle in a way. It's different, but to this kind of thing again, where you can ask humans and get feedback and follow up. But
And
it's
for what it's worth, any Bay Area business should have been trying to participate in that Berkeley Parents Forum forever, because it ranked, I don't know if it still does, but it ranked absolutely everywhere. It was parents.berkeley.edu, I'm pretty sure, is the
right, and
subdomain.
it's still
Um,
around. It's still around
yeah,
amazingly, but I don't know how active people are in it anymore. But that's right. And Nextdoor should have done a version of that. And I don't really understand. This is a digression. Why Nextdoor is kind of languishing in the way that it is, but it's really unfortunate because it's really falling well short of its potential. But that's a different discussion entirely.
yeah,
So, Mike,
and
yeah, yeah,
really idiotic growth decision to put all their content behind a walled garden, right? I mean, there's ways to do a better job of ranking for a lot of these long tail phrases that sites like the Berkeley Parents Network do pretty well. So.
exactly.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.